Okay, the tools you're gonna need is a screwdriver to kind of pry your way in with the brake pads to try to separate them. And to get the wheel off, you're gonna need a 17mm socket. Some of the X series are a little bigger, 19. Either an impact driver to remove the wheels, or you can do a wrench manually, that's fine. You're gonna need a piston caliper spreader, but you can use a big pair of channel locks if you don't have one of those. And also you're gonna need a 7mm Allen. That's to get the brake caliper loose, and a 6mm Allen to get the rotor set screw off, and an extension 3/8 with a 3/8 ratchet. It's a good size for it. You can use any size if you need. This is to clean the wheel hub off of all the rust and junk like that once you get the rotor off. And then also some grease to, you can use bearing grease if you don't have anything. Some of the brake pad sets come with grease, and it's to grease the ears of the brake pads. You also need either an 18 or a 16 wrench. That's usually what most of the applications use to get the actual brake caliper bracket off of the back. And if you are going to reuse the brake rotors, you will need to chamfer the edge of the brake pad material to compensate for the lip on the edge of the brake rotor, so it doesn't come in contact with the brake pad. Otherwise you will get some heat marks and some brake squeal. Alright, so if you don't have a hoist like we have over here, you can use your some jack stands and a little floor jack. If you do use that, make sure you put your e-brake on and you put some wheel chocks. Safety first. And some of your cars might have a wheel lock, so hopefully if you do have it, you can find it easily. And so what we're going to do is, first things first, we're going to remove this tension spring right here, and this is the reduced noise and vibration. And so you can just put the screwdriver in there and kind of pry around and gently pull, and it should pop out of these little sections right here. And you don't want to try to bend that thing too much. It is a spring. Try not to hyperextend it, just be gentle with it. They can be a little finicky at first, but just take your time with it. And then also, as far as brakes go, try to use the same manufacturer that BMW uses. Try not to go too cheap, because you will get some brake noise and squeaks, and you might get vibration later. So try to use some high quality stuff if you can. Obviously, if you're doing your own brakes, you're trying to save money, or at least learn how to do brakes on your car. Try not to go too cheap. I recommend Techstar or Jurid or Pagid. They all make their own brake pads, and they also have their own line of brake rotors also. So as far as measuring the thickness of the disc, 50% of the time you're going to need new discs, if not more, and you'll have to measure the thickness and with a little tool. And the thickness is usually the number is usually on the side right here, or the outer lip along here, and that's the minimum thickness in millimeters. So if it's close to that thickness by a millimeter, you want to replace those rotors. So BMW doesn't recommend to turn them. Right now they are turning certain rotors for certain issues. Overall, they want you to replace them. So that's what they recommend. Your call, but if it is under the specifications, you should replace it because it's a safety issue. Okay, I already have the spring off, so now I'm going to take the caliper off here. So what we need to do is, if you can look in here, we're going to have to push back the piston a little bit. So I like to get a screwdriver in here, and I just twist a little bit, just enough to kind of make a little gap in there, so you can kind of move it around. So the next thing you want to do, you want to take these little caps off, try not to lose them, and that's going to give you access to the Allen bolts in the back. go. And right now is the time where we're going to push the piston up. And like I said, if you don't have one of these tools, you can use channel locks. It's not really approved, but if you don't do this stuff all the time, it's not a big deal. You can make a little compromise. And normally I would say do not hang this caliper by its cord. This is an aluminum one. A lot of them are steel. They're a lot heavier, but this one's okay to do. It's very light. It's not putting too much tension on this here. Otherwise, you want to hang it with something, a bungee cord, something like that. And while you have these pins out, pull them out. These ones are real dry, and you want to clean these very well and very lightly lube them because they will get hung up and cause brake squeak and irregular brake pad wear. Just very lightly. Get it in there real good. So on this car, to get this caliper bracketed off as an 18, by the way, this is going to make a huge mess, so you might want to put something on the ground and catch some of this stuff because it gets everywhere. And really, I should be wearing a face mask, so because this dust, it's not asbestos, but I'm sure it's not good for you either. So now we're going to put on the 6mm Allen, and we're going to take the set screw off of this caliper to remove it. Some of these get really stuck on there with some rust. You can squirt some WD in here and hit it with like a soft mallet to get it off. It's not BMW recommended. There's a special big puller, but it's an expensive part. If you don't have anything else, hitting it with a hammer would be fine. Okay, and you want to clean this hub off. This one's actually pretty good shape. Some people put on like brake clean or parts wash on here, and I like to use a little WD-40. Everyone has their own method because the WD-40 does a dual purpose. I can clean it and kind of lube it a little bit to prevent rust in the future. Set this on here. It can get a little tricky. Push it on with one hand. There's no really dowels for it to sit on, and you want to make sure you have your set screw ready. Okay. You just want it snug. Its main purpose is just to set it in place, so it doesn't really hold it on. You want to try to keep this as clean as you can. Later you can clean it with some brake clean or something like that if you had any grease marks on there. Alright. Okay. Alright, on this car I looked out, I didn't have to use the little wire brush to clean the hub underneath, so it's pretty clean. Some of them you have to use it. And right here I've already lubed the ears. Try not to put too much. I did put quite a bit on there, but you can kind of clean it up later. If you put too much on there, what happens is once this gets hot, some of that grease can get real thin because it's hot and then drip actually onto the pad. It's the last thing you want. So, and if you are reusing your brake rotors, I said earlier you want to chamfer the pad, and we're not going to do that here, but I'm just going to pretend like we're doing it so to show you what it is. And the whole point is you build up a lip on here when you're reusing the rotor, so you don't want it to hit the edge of the pad, inner and outer. So you chamfer, we'll just do one, about that much. That's about it. That's kind of all you need on there, and you just so it doesn't, the lip of this outer edge doesn't come in contact with the outer edge of the pad. So caliper goes back on, everything basically in reverse. And I did grease this already, so you kind of don't want to get any grease on the rotor. Now we can put the pad on, and some cars are directional, so keep an eye on it. A lot of people will put grease on here. It's actually personal preference. I did talk to a brake pad rep, and he went to the manufacturer and they actually discourage putting any lubricant right here. It depends on the quality of the pad. A very high quality brake pad, this is a factory pad, they have multi-layer layering right here, and they said that the grease can take it off. So in this case I'm not going to use it. It's really, it depends. When I worked at the dealership, there's some service bulletins that actually had us put it on there, so it just kind of depends. This backpack can get a little tricky. Some of them have these little locking spring tabs. Just kind of takes a little finesse getting them in there. There, and again, try not to get any grease or anything on the pad. And you do want to do all this stuff by hand, like I stated earlier. I myself have cross-threaded some of these, and it's real easy to do, even if you're a professional, so it can happen to anybody. I'll put these dust caps back on. Alright. And the trickiest part of all is getting the spring back on. You can see where there's a lot of rubbing contact. It wouldn't hurt to put a little bit of lube on there, just barely. It's probably going to come off anyway once you go to a car wash and they power wash your wheels, but it's not a bad idea. And this, everyone has their own little trick. Some cars are harder than others. Some models are harder than others. You just kind of have to fight it and try not to overextend it. So I lucked out on there. So it feels like it's in. What I like to do is kind of like tap it with something to kind of settle it in even more. All right. And clean whatever you need to clean. If you got any grease on anything. Looks good. Okay. All right. That's it. Put the wheel on. Double check everything. Okay guys, when putting the wheel on, you want to torque it in a cross pattern. So from here to here to here to here to here to make it evenly, kind of in 2 steps. So tighten it more and more and more. Torque wrench is best if you can. If not, just use your best judgment. This is a 2008 328i. So on this car, it's 128 Newton meters on this one. Give or take. So every car is different. You want to look it up to definitely make sure you have the right torque on it. Alright guys, so once everything is completed, wheels are torqued down, you want to pump the brakes to collapse all the pistons again before you put it in drive and drive it away. That's a very important special note on there. So pump the brakes until it gets hard. You can start the car, that's fine, but just don't drive it yet until the pedal is firm. One other thing I forgot to mention, if you are doing the rear brakes, you want to release the e-brake, because if you have the e-brake on, you won't be able to get the brake rotor off. And that's happened to me before. It sounds so simple, but sometimes when you're in the middle of it, it just, you don't realize. So right now we're going to replace, right now we're going to reset the brake light in the instrument cluster, the little service interval. And you want to make sure you replace the brake sensor on the brakes, the front and the back. They both have one. So here we go. All right, so key on, engine off, doors shut, and you want to make sure that there's no warnings or anything on right here, otherwise it won't let you do it. So you want the time, and then it says park. So this is kind of the neutral display setting. So then you hit and hold down this left button over here. So hold it down, keep holding it. There's the front. So then we go over to the stock right here, the BC stock, and you want to press it, let go, and it says reset. So then you hold it down again, and then you can let go, and then you can see the little clock and it's resetting it. There it goes, 21,000. And when you want to scroll to the next, if you did the rear, I did the rear, I did all the way around on this car. So here we go, press it, let go, press and hold until the clock comes on, let go, and it'll do it automatically. Perfect. If you did do the rear brakes, you're going to want to seat in the rear emergency brake pads. So that's a quick way to do. They are self-adjusting. It has a self-adjusting mechanism. You shouldn't need to play with any cables or adjustments like that. But to break them in, just drive like 35 miles an hour and just pull this for a couple seconds gently. 1, 2, 3, let go. A few seconds later, do it again. 1, 2, 3, and do that about 3 times. You don't want to overheat them or glaze them because then they won't grab really well. So that's pretty much all we do, and it usually feels pretty good. A mandatory rule at our shop is after we do a brake job, we drive it and we pull it back in the shop and make sure all the nuts and bolts are tight again and retorque the wheels, because sometimes that temperature change can cause things to either back out or loosen up. So just double check everything, get eyes everything before you ship the car, because really this is one of the biggest safety things for these cars. If it's your car, then okay, you know, you're taking the risk, but if it's someone else, they're putting their trust in their life really in your hands. So safety first. A little special note, before you go on your test drive or during your test drive, you want to take it easy on the brakes. Just drive very normal, very calm for the first 100 or so miles on the car. That way the brakes can seat in really nicely, and then you can kind of get a little more aggressive a little later. But you want those to seat in nicely, otherwise you will get some rotor warpage, and which will cause vibration in your steering wheel and also brake squeal. So just take it easy for a while, let them break in nice and easy, and you should be fine. All right, everyone, thank you for watching. I hope this has helped you guys out in the confidence in doing your own brake job on your car. Please like and subscribe to our channel. It helps us out and helps our customers out, helps everyone out to be able to work on their own car and just kind of gain more knowledge about their car. So thank you again very much. Have a wonderful week.